Hi, everyone. My name is Anджела Meier. I live in the United States in Washington, D.C., and I'm so honored and excited to be a part of this project. It connects all of my different passions and life experience. So I'm really happy to talk to you about what we're going to do. And then also I'll introduce myself so you know who this person is that's working with you. So first off, we're going to be talking about how our brain or our mental health, if you will, and how our body or our physicality, how they connect and how we can use them to become better martial artists and honestly just happier and more alive and embodied human beings. So that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. So let me first introduce myself and then I'll get to that part, okay? So like I said, my name is Anджela. I'm 43. Oh my goodness, I'm 42. I will be 43 in January. I just jumped myself up a little bit there. I'm a black belt in self-defense through Krав-magу. I have taught yoga and practiced yoga for over 20 years now, so put some time in there. I am a competitive martial artist, so I've done mixed martial arts, several muay-tai fights. I'm currently training for a boxing fight. Unfortunately, a few years ago, I tore my ACL, my knee, when I was training for jiu-jitsu, so I had to take some years off, but I'm getting back in it. But let me tell you, I think the most important thing I want to tell you about myself is why I do this training, why I decided to train in martial arts, why I was drawn to the training of self-defense and yoga and embodiment. A couple of different reasons. One, I am fascinated with the breath, with our breath. And let me tell you, like, at the beginning, especially when I was practicing yoga and teaching yoga and everyone's like, and meditating, you know, I've done a lot of meditation work and teaching. But at the beginning, you know, people are like, oh, just breathe, 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 you know, and making it sound so simple. And I'm like, well, Lord, if it was that easy, my life would be fantastic. But it wasn't easy for me, you know, and it wasn't easy to just learn how to breathe. I've also worked for many, many years, over 15 years in hospice work. I worked here in Washington, D.C. at a place called Joseph's House, which is AIDS hospice for homeless men and women who are dying, right? That's what hospice is. So I spent a lot of time at the bedside with people, watching their breath leave their body, right? And breathing with them. That was a practice that we did, a ritual that we did was sit vigil with people at the bedside and match our breath to their breath as it left their body. You know, wow, what a powerful experience of breath, right? Where it is literally the lifeline to life and death. So you would think with all of that experience and all of the moments that I've spent with different people at the bedside that something would click and I'd be like, yeah, this breath thing is really important. But it wasn't until martial arts, it really wasn't until my first Muay-Thai fight where I got in the ring and was terrified that this whole breath, like the importance of breath, made a lot of sense or made more sense. Okay, and again, I had practiced yoga for years before this. I had taught yoga. I had told people to breathe in and out forever, and it still didn't click like when I really needed it. You know, when I stepped in the ring and was actually in fight, flight, or freeze. And I'm going to talk a little bit here in a minute about our brain and fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, but for me, the first Muay Thai fight I did, I was ready. I had trained. I was in good conditioning shape. I felt good about the preparation that I had put into it. After the first round, I remember going back to my corner, and I was like, and I looked at my coach and I was like, I can't feel my legs. Like, what's happening? What's wrong? And he's like, because for 2 minutes, you just held your breath. And I did, because I was terrified. And the reason that I decided to do sport fighting, one, I love the training. I love it so much. It makes me feel strong. It makes me feel empowered in my body. It has helped me gain voice and create boundaries to be able to say no when I want to say no, yes when I want to say yes. It has definitely helped me have more self-confidence and just walk in the world differently, right? Which is a great self-defense technique, if you will, just the way we carry ourselves, the way we walk. So I wanted to train in self-defense. I wanted to train in fighting and MMA and mixed martial arts because I loved it. But also, and the main reason I really want you to hear as I'm talking about myself is I was terrified. I was so afraid. It scares me so bad. I grew up in Texas, but I grew up extremely terrified of people, of the world. I did not speak, like literally utter words in public until I was in like mid 5th grade. So I spent most of my formative years as a young girl completely frozen in fear. You know, anytime I was at school, in public, I just was frozen. I would sit on the sidelines at recess on the sidewalk and just sit like a statue and hope that if I was quiet enough, if I was still enough, nobody would see me. Right? So I spent so much of my life living in this fight, flight, or freeze response where my body was actually shut down, because that's the way I responded to the need to survive, as I froze. Right? So other people have different responses. You know, they could fight back, they could run, but my response as a little girl was to freeze, was to try to be invisible. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Done a lot of other things in the world, been a lot of places. I'm so grateful to have had all of this experience and to be able to do these things I love, and to be a teacher. I have taught yoga and martial arts and movement and self-defense now for, combined for 20 years. So I'm very happy to be here with you teaching. So let's talk about a little bit about what I'm going to be teaching and working on with you. So when I told you about my response to survival was to freeze, was for my body to shut down. Okay, so when we are in some sort of limbic state, okay, when there is something, some stimulus in our external environment that causes our brain, especially our reptilian brain, which is the brain stem, and then our mammal, or it's also called, the limbic brain, our middle brain. When there's something in our external environment that triggers these lower parts of our brain, then our brain is brilliant, right? Our bodies are brilliant. We were evolved as human beings to react to that trigger, that survival trigger, by trying to survive, right? So our body puts all these chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol into our body so that we can be stronger, faster. We're just going, right? We're like, is it a snake or a rope? It's a snake, it's a tiger, and we got to run, we got to do something to survive. So in that way, our bodies are amazing, right? But the problematic piece is that as we have evolved, as human beings, our brains can trigger this survival response a lot in the world. And sometimes we actually need it, right? And we're going to be doing, some different self-defense work where we want to use that to respond. But in our everyday lives, a lot of times we don't need that response, right? But maybe because of past trauma that we've had in our lives, our past experiences, it's still happening. And it happens for everyone, but especially if we've experienced more kind of like big trauma, or even, different little traumas in our everyday lives can trigger this. So what happens in the brain when our fight, flight, or freeze response is triggered, our sympathetic nervous system then is online. We have all this adrenaline, we have all this cortisol shooting through our body. Our breath shortens. It's when you get really sweaty, like sweaty palms. You have very, what they call like narrow vision or tunnel vision, it's called. And our neocortex, or our frontal brain, is completely offline. We can't access it. Right. And that's our rational brain. That's the one that we need to make decisions, more conscious decisions, to be like, what do we do next? How do we respond? Right. In a way that makes sense to what's actually happening. Okay. But there is some brilliant tools that we can start to work with to rewire our brains, which is so exciting that we have that power. And one of them is our breath, right? It is, what I call like our superpower, and it really is. And there's ways that we can start to get in touch with it and get in touch with our bodies. So we're going to do some yoga practice and grounding, grounding techniques into our body. And we'll do some breathing and meditation practices that help us to send, when we're triggered, when our brains are triggered and we can't access our rational brain, or this frontal lobe, it's also called, there are ways that we can still use our bodies, use these grounding practices and our breath to move up to our brain, right, through something called the vagus nerve, but it connects our brain to our bodies. And there's a way that we can move this physical body messages. We can send messages, hello, up to the brain that says, hey, everything's okay. You're safe. And how that helps us to not only stay safer in the world and to just in our everyday lives to live more happy and alive, but it also helps us as martial artists, as mixed martial artists, to because as martial artists, right, we are, when we're in a sparring session, when we're in this moment of conflict, we can get triggered. Our brains, our bottom brains, our reptilian and limbic brain can be like, hey, you're in danger. And we're scared, right? There's fear involved, there's anxiety involved. And we're like, what do I do? And by accessing our breath and these grounding practices that I'm going to teach you, we can, right in the middle of things, right in the middle of conflict, right in the middle of a fight, right? We are able to come back into our bodies, to have our body say to our brain in a split second, right? This can just be in a moment of time, right in the middle of things, right in the middle of conflict. Our body can tell our brain, hey, yo, you up there, you're okay, we're safe. And that way, what happens is we start to activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which then balances all of that adrenaline, all of that cortisol, and it helps us to calm. Our vision broadens, we're able to see things, we're able to relax so we don't use all of our energy. In my first fight, or actually several after, let me be honest, I used so much energy because I was so afraid. There was so much fear and anxiety, and the adrenaline was just coursing through my veins. So by these practices that I'm going to teach you, it not only helps you in your everyday life that can sometimes feel like a fight, right? But also to become a much better athlete, human being, martial artist. So again, I'm so happy to be with you and to be talking to you about these really important matters. You know, it can be life or death matters. The way that our mental and physical and kind of soulful body are all connected. So thank you so much. Again, my name is Anджела, and I'm very happy to be working with you.